Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I doing now? Well, I'm driving to work, so you're riding to work with Kenny. And I am over on another highway. The first highway I have to get on is a nightmare, so I never like to film when I'm on there. This one's not so bad because there's construction, so you're not going as fast, and it's usually much quieter, as you can see from the traffic behind me. So I guess I kind of kicked the hornet's nest, stirred up a little controversy with that video of mine on flat rate and how it's killing the industry, and it has been for the last 15, 20, 25 years or so. Flat rate, in case you don't know, is them paying you per job, and per job is okay, except when it's warranty. When it's warranty, usually you get shafted because warranty pays far less than what it should. And I think they've recently made that illegal in many states, because a job that should pay 2 hours, the manufacturer says, well, we're only going to pay you 9/10. Why is that? Because they're trying to cut their costs. And I understand cutting costs, but cutting it on our backs. Why not cut the salaries of the CEOs or something? I have no idea. Look at what happened with Stellantis and the nightmare that CEO created. But anyway, at the dealership, I was going to stay there until I retired. That was the original plan, because I really, truly enjoyed it. And I think I told you. I may have, I may not have. When I first started there, the owner, his name was Bill, he was a fantastic guy. I didn't know anything about him, at the time when I first started, but I pretty quickly found out that this guy was a good guy. He would come around, he would learn your family's names, your wife, your kids, whoever's in your family, your immediate family, he would learn their names. And, he would come around, I'd say, well, he came around every Friday to hand you your paycheck. He personally came around to hand you your paycheck. And say maybe once a month, once every 2 months, something like that, out of the blue, he would just walk around and say hi to everybody. And, hey, Kenny, how's it going? Hey, how's Mrs. doing? How's your son, Chris? And, how's your daughter, Ashley? Stuff like that. He would ask stuff like that. He really got to know you. And then he would say, how are you liking working here? How is everybody treating you? Is everything good? Is there anything we can do different? Is there anything I can do different? Is there anything I can do to help make your job better? Is there anything I can do to make your home life better? He would ask stuff like this. Like, he was genuinely a good person who cared about the people that worked for him. I have all the respect in the world for him. And people would go out of their way to help this man. They would do anything and everything this man would ask, because you know what? He was always there for you. I mean, what more could you ask for? You felt respected. You felt like you were in a family. You felt like they cared about you. It was awesome. It really was. Then he got sick, and he passed away suddenly. And it was horrible when he passed away, because, of course, everybody's like, what's going to happen to the company? Well, the wife took over. And she was a great person, too. Not taking anything away from her. She was a great person. She cared about you, too. She wasn't on the same level as he was, but she was very caring, very nice person. Always easy to, talk to, approach, whatever. She was always there for you if you needed her. They were an older couple. They had a son and a daughter. And the son and daughter were, I think, in their early 20s at the time. So you could see the writing on the wall, obviously. So the son and daughter slowly started to take over. And the son was the one who's basically going to wind up really running things. Like the face of what you're going to see. And, even though they probably ran it together, he was the one who was always there. He was the one who was always the one up front. So he starts cutting labor times for the techs. We're going to raise the price per hour, but we're going to lower the time to the techs. So this way, the dealer makes more money, but the techs make less. That was one of his great plans. That started things off. So making hours became more difficult because he felt that, well, if the manufacturer's only going to pay this much for this job, well, why should we pay more? Because you're charging more. That's why. Now, you may sit there and think that sounds like a ripoff, but it's not. It's a ripoff the other way around. What we were getting paid by the manufacturer, that's usually horrible time, and it's definitely not worth the job. But anyway, that's another story. So making hours became difficult, especially when you reach the upper level where you are certified or qualified to fix anything and everything that comes rolling through the door. So think about this. You have a guy that's lesser qualified, but a very good tech. He may not be certified in everything, but he can diagnose certain things. So you get a brake job that comes in, and then you get a drivability on a brand new vehicle that comes in. Well, the vehicle that's brand new with the drivability issue, they can't give it to him because Chrysler won't recognize him as being able to work on that car. So even if he worked on it and fixed it, Chrysler would not pay the claim. It's called the claim when you submit for warranty. Chrysler would not even pay it. Chrysler would be like, no, he wasn't qualified, but it's fixed. Doesn't matter. They wouldn't pay for it. So that vehicle would automatically have to go to somebody like me. It got so bad to a point that the four of us that were like the main guys at the dealer, the team leaders and stuff like that. There was 5 of us that were that qualified, but there was 4 of us that were team leaders. And we went up to the service manager and the owner and said, hey, listen, why don't you pay us a salary instead? And you can hand us every single warranty crap job that rolls through the door. They didn't want to do that. They'd rather, every once in a blue moon throw you a bone and, here's a brake job. Well, you know what? That's not going to help us. This guy's making 60 hours a week at $20 an hour. I'm making 30 hours a week at $30 an hour. How does that equate? How? It doesn't. So the guy who's less qualified is making more money. And it wasn't just me. When I left, a grand total of 8 people left around the same time. It was kind of like a mass exodus. After we had left, and 2 of us were the higher level, they brought the other 2 team leaders in and said, listen, we're going to pay you salary. Yeah, because everybody's leaving. So why did I leave, though? Okay, so one thing was me doing those preps, and then the owner wouldn't let me do the preps anymore. Hand them out during the day. Okay, so that cut my hours back down. That was one thing. Another thing was we had a very good customer who was kind of like a staple in the town. Everybody knew him, knew his family, and they started off as like a driveway resealing company, and they eventually grew to like the biggest paving company in the area. And great people. They were nice people. I actually had them do work for me also. But during the winter time up in New York, obviously you're not going to have a lot of driveway work. You might. It just really depends on weather. If you're going to have cold, snowy, icy weather, you can't really put down a good driveway. You got to wait for the right time. So also what they did was they had plow trucks. And the owner, he had his own personal plow truck, which was a 5500 Ram with a utility body on the back. And hold on a second, see if I can't get that out of light. With a utility body on the back. And it was a new one. The thing, I think, had 11,000 miles on it. And we were going to get a bad snowstorm coming in our way. All of a sudden he comes in with it and he goes, hey, we got this storm coming, and this thing now just went into limp mode. Okay, limp. Basically, it was stuck in 3rd gear. It wouldn't shift gears, nothing. Can't plow like that. All right, it was close to the end of the day. I like I said, I knew him. We weren't friends, but I knew him. He knew me. So I was like, all right, let me see if I can't figure this out. So I get it in the shop. I look it over, and I realize that the main connector that goes through the transmission at the top of the pan rail where like the shifter linkage would be, the main connector there had water intrusion. So I'm inspecting it, and I couldn't figure out how it was getting water intrusion, but it was getting water intrusion. Was the injection molded plastic connector, did it have like a pinhole in it or something? I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was. So what I did was I took the connector apart, cleaned it, packed it with dielectric grease. I cleaned out the connector at the top of the transmission, because that's basically the valve body connector. I cleaned it out, blew it out, just made sure all the terminals were nice and clean, packed it with dielectric grease. Put it all back together, packed the top of it with some dielectric grease, like where the wires are going in. It's like, well, okay, now it's shifting fine. It's working the way it's supposed to again. So at least this way he could do his plowing work. So I think it was like 10:30 at night, maybe even 11 o'clock. And, oops, hold on. Let me go to a different spot here. So it was like 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock. And, I get the thing completed. I call him up. I had his personal phone number. I called him up and I said, hey, you can come pick up your truck. I got it fixed. But it's not a permanent fix. But it'll work for you for now. Okay, great. I waited for him. He comes and picks it up. It was like I said, 11 o'clock, 11:30, something like that. All done. I go home. I come in the next morning. I explain everything. I said, we're going to have to get a valve body and a connector, because I don't know what's wrong with the connector. I couldn't figure out why it's getting water in it. But it's fixed and it left, right? That's what they said to me. Well, yeah, but it's a temporary repair. Just leave it. It's a temporary repair. It'll be fine. Just leave it. No, it won't be. We need parts for it. For some reason, they didn't want to order parts. And this guy had bought $1 million worth of trucks from us. Like, really? So I can't say anything. So about a month later, here he comes in, and he's angry because it happened again. They actually had the cojones to get mad at me that I didn't do something right, but I had noted everything. I'm not stupid. I noted everything. I noted it and I printed it, because what happened too, this is dishonesty that happens. Somebody, don't know who, erased what I had written on the ticket in the computer. So, but I had printed it, so I had a copy of it. I had a file cabinet, and I would do that on vehicles. Because that happened to me a long time ago, where I was like, I know I wrote this down. They're like, well, it's not here. Yeah, okay, because somebody's erasing it. So that was a big one. Another one was, I went on vacation, so I was gone for a week. I finished my day on Friday. We left on Saturday, went on vacation, came back, a week later on a Monday. As soon as I walk in the door, I hear, oh, Wessel, you got to come back. Okay. Everybody gets comebacks. It happens. Nobody's perfect. So I grab the ticket and I look at it, and it says, has a severe vibration. Okay. So I'm like, what the heck? And I'm looking at a Jeep Cherokee, not Grand Cherokee, Jeep Cherokee. How's this a comeback of mine? So I start looking at the history. I look at the history and I realize I had done an oil change and tire rotation 4 or 5 months prior. Okay. Somebody else had done an oil change after me. So I went to them and I said, how is this a comeback of mine? Well, you did a tire rotation. Okay. 5 months ago. Yeah, but it's your comeback. All right. So I go and I get in the car, and as soon as I start moving it, I'm like, I know what's wrong with this. I get it inside, I put it up in the air. The carrier bearing, for some reason, on the drive shaft going from the front to the back had failed, and it was banging around. No idea why. Manufacturing defect, who knows? It wasn't that old of a vehicle. So now I'm angry because I happened to look at the ticket, and I realized it was dropped off that Monday, the first day of my vacation. And they gave the customer a rental car. So I'm like, So I asked the guy in the bay next to me. I said, how busy was it while I was gone? Oh, it wasn't bad. I go, were you guys doing preps and used car inspections? Oh, yeah. And we were pretty much done by about 4 o'clock every day. Okay. So I showed him the ticket. I said, would there have been any reason that nobody was able to look at this? He goes, no. Why? I said, I'm just curious. I said, it's been here for a week. So he thought that was ridiculous. So I went into the service manager. I closed the door. I sat down. I put the ticket on his desk. I go, what is this? He goes, well, I guess it's got a vibration. Uh-huh. I go, how's it my comeback? Well, I don't know. So he looks at me. He goes, well, it really shouldn't have been your comeback. Exactly. I said, but you guys put this customer in a loaner car or a rental car for an entire week, and nobody could look at this car? Nobody could look at this car. You inconvenienced this customer for an entire week, and nobody could look at this car? Really? I was fuming. Turned out it was the service writer's fault. Yeah. So, yeah, I was fuming. So then finally, the straw that really broke the camel's back. I have things written down on a cheat sheet here that's taped to my dashboard. The straw that broke the camel's back. I was friends with all the sales managers up front. I still am with a couple of them. One guy in particular, great guy, like a very trustworthy person. Like, like car salesmen get like a terrible rap, and I can understand it because there's some sleazy salespeople out there, just like there are sleazy mechanics out there. But there's also great people too. This guy's one of them. He's a great guy. Bag of donuts, that's all I'm saying. And he comes back to me, and he kind of has like his head down a little bit. And he's like, hey, Kenny, he goes, I got to show you something. He goes, this really bothered me. I'm like, okay, what is it? So I'm thinking I did something wrong, So he goes, you know how the girls, he said the girls in the office is what he's talking about. He says, you know how the girls print out emails for Kenny so he can read them? I'm like, I didn't know that. Apparently, when emails would come in for Kenny, the owner, that was Junior, Kenny, the owner. When emails would come in, girls would sift through them, and stuff they felt was important, they would print and put on his desk. He would read them and then throw them out, or do whatever he had to in regards to them. So he hands me this piece of paper that's been crumbled up, and it was addressed to Kenny, and it was also CC'd to somebody at Chrysler, I forgot who, but it basically was acknowledging that and praising me for being the one that figured out what was wrong with her Chrysler 200. She had a very strange problem with her car. Very strange problem with her car. And it had gone through several techs through our shop that could not figure out what was going on with it. That nobody could ever duplicate her problem. That's why. So I get it. And I said, all right. I said, can you tell her or ask her to come here and road test this with me? Because obviously we're not figuring out what's going on. We need her to drive it. I need her to drive it with me in it. So calls the lady up. The lady says, yeah, I can come down. The problem is where it happens is like 45 minutes away. So they're like, okay, well, we got to go with you for a ride. So she comes in, and of course, they don't mind me going out for a 45-minute ride because they're not paying me. You know what I mean? I'm flat rate. I don't get paid for that. So I get in a car with the customer, and we actually had to drive 45 minutes away to this particular road in this particular neighborhood, and it was like a hill going up. And she goes, watch this. She goes, when I get up to that stop sign and I go to take off, it'll do it once it goes to shift gears. I was like, okay. So she was driving normally like anybody else would, nothing different about how she was driving. She wasn't driving aggressively or too easy or whatever. She goes to take off, and then when it hit second gear, it hit so hard into second gear, I swear I thought we got rear-ended. Like, it was like, bang! It's like, wow! And she's like, yeah, and this is the only spot it ever does it. She goes, I can't get this to do it anywhere else. I was like, that is absolutely wild. I said, go back around and let's try it again. So she tried it 3 times, and 3 times it did it. So we wind up getting back to the shop. I wind up calling Chrysler. She left it with us. I wind up calling Chrysler. Excuse me. Engineering, Star Center is what they called it. And back and forth, and they had me, it was a 9-speed in this Chrysler 200, V6 with a 9-speed. And they had me lower the fluid level to the absolute bottom of the full mark. It's just a hair above the add mark, but at the very bottom of what should be considered full at that temperature. So I got it to that point. They had me do the relearns a dozen times. They had me do clutch relearns, all this other stuff a dozen times. Then I had to road test it. Road test it to that same spot. So it's another hour and a half just on a road test. Didn't do it. They had me come back. They had me let it sit overnight. Then they had me drive it again the next day. There's another hour and a half. Didn't do it. So they said, okay, we think it's fixed. So I gave it back to the customer. Excuse me. I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning, so I'm kind of tired. Gave it back to the customer. The customer was so happy that she emailed the owner of the company saying, these are the kind of employees you have. That's why I come to you. Kenny did a great job. Kenny went out of his way to make sure that my car was fixed correctly. Blah, blah, blah. Basically praising me. And the owner took it, read it, crumpled it up, threw it in the garbage, and never said a word to me. Never said a word to me. You know why? Because I was a number. And he didn't care. He absolutely didn't care. And from what I understand, he still doesn't care. And the place has become a revolving door. But that flat rate now has changed, because warranty flat rate has been deemed illegal in certain states, and New York State was one of them. So you can no longer have, if Book Time pays 2 hours for a job, and warranty says, oh, we're only going to pay you 9/10. Nope. By law, they can't do that anymore. They have to pay that 2 hours. So now the techs are actually starting to make money again. So that's a good thing. So there is some light on the horizon. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Obviously, I'm here at work. I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was something that I should go over. So, all right, guys. Hopefully you're getting something out of my videos. If you are, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. Have a great day, and keep wrenching.